Well, folks, welcome back to another episode of What's Next. The cool thing about this one is I got my good friend Jeremy Aisenberg back, and instead of doing an interview, we're going to co-host this thing. And he and I have been, I'd say, lamenting over some of the comments coming in, some of our clients that come to see us. We work together in Galway Bay, so we hear it over there, and we've seen it in the golf industry, among many others, which is I am busting my ass, and I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. And so this episode is going to be titled Finding Your North Star. Our goal is to give you some framework to work within, and again, experience, not opinion. So hopefully a way to kind of build out, how do I find my North Star? Or maybe I think I have it, and where in the hell am I going with it? So I think the first part of that is, Jeremy, welcome in. You know, like you and I are going to rip the thing like it's fireside chat. But my thing is like, cut the shit, right? Because I think we all have this fluffy idea of what the North Star is, but really it's this guiding principle that says, no matter what, I know where I'm going. And I think athletes can relate to, why in the hell were you up at 5 a.m. working out in the off season when, look, you deserve your break, right? And the reason is because I know next year we don't want to just make the playoffs. We want to win the effing thing. So maybe let's set the stage with, I know what my North Star is. You and I have talked about yours, but as a framework for other athletes or high performers that are just thinking about leaving their team environment and heading off on their own, what would you say, like, you know, give us a couple of starting points to where I even think about what is my North Star and how do I start kind of defining it?
The North Star, we've talked about so much. The idea of the North Star is complex in that it sort of evolves based on stations in life, and sort of that hierarchy of needs when we're just trying to make sure that we can survive as whether it's as young people or as adults, and context of society, and paying our bills and providing for our family. And then it's sort of, as an entrepreneur, sort of as a person, what's your North Star as a human being, and your family values and spirituality, or life perspective. Then there's your professional North Star, and I think the two line up generally, but I think it's important to define and that they're distinct. In my opinion, actually, we never talked about that. What do you think about that? Is there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm coming off an interview with Robert Wolf, founder of Moose Jaw Mountaineering, CrowdRise, now Zek. He's business partners with Ed Norton, who, to that point, they had very aligned North Stars. Edward Norton joined them at CrowdRise and then again at Zek. And his was always, you have to love the madness. That was a North Star. Yeah. And I do know him as a friend and as a father and as a husband. And talking to his family, his son's a really good golfer, so I get to sort of chat with him about Galway Bay. There's madness in the family. And I don't say that from a craziness madness, but this pace, and we want experiences in life. It's not about things. And the people that have worked for him have transitioned. His life and North Star personally and his one at work are very similar. Like, I think he would say the same thing, that he's kind of discovered what is in his inner soul. And he brought that to work and then just said, no matter what, embrace the madness and we will serve our clients to no end. I was like, wow, that's really simple. And anything that fractured that just didn't work. And it transferred from Moose Jaw to CrowdRise and now to Zach, just using him as an example. But I think you're right. I think we can tend in society to say, well, here's your at-work hat. Here's your family hat. Here's your personal life hat. And of the episodes we've done so far, and you've been a part of that, it's been cool for me to see that the common thread here, sort of one of these really deep lessons, is that who you are on Tuesday is also who you are on Friday night, is the dad that you are on Saturday afternoon. And the more common you make those things in terms of knowing what your North Star is, life's just easier, and it's got some harmony that really works. So I think first and foremost, to your point, is finding what it is in each of those pieces of life. And if it's way out of balance, how do you sort of get it back? So that would be my take.
Yeah, it's like, is it work-life balance or is it work-life integration?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's a whole episode, because I don't, I'm 57, multiple companies, a few crash and burns, a few exits. If my wife Denise was sitting here, she'd tell you there is no such thing as life balance. We call it balancing, like literally we call it that, because there are seasons in life where the work week can literally be 60, 70, 80 hours a week. It can be. we just got back from 20 days in Europe. Work life was maybe an hour every other day. It's got its seasons and we're balancing, right? But our North Star is about, you and I were talking about this offline. We want to know that what we do delivers value and that for us personally, it also involves experience. So that's really important to us. So it's not about the things that we have as much as it is about the things we get to experience. And that's part of our North Star, just to sort of go off track on inside the home. But I can also tell you, whether it's Galway Bay, my sports facility, High Velocity, which I just came from, we talk about delivering experience at a Disney, a Ritz level, because we believe that that's a separator. And we think that that's what makes people smile. So that is part of our North Star. And as you know me, it's probably pretty much the same, right? Like, I'm a happy dude. I love life. Been punched in the nose enough times to still bounce back. But yeah, it's about sort of that experience that brings life for sure.
It's funny you mentioned Ed Norton. I've met so many interesting people in my career, and I've only sort of like nerded out and I'm such a big fan. You know, I got to say hi, introduce myself to one person, and that's Ed Norton. Yeah, truly one of my favorite actors and brilliant in everything he's done, and been a fan of his work and the brilliance of it in so many occasions. And when I saw him present Zach, this solution to entrepreneurs and VCs, and I've been fortunate to wear both hats, this great solution for reporting and engaging with, you know, the data that matters to, you know, people in that marketplace. It is such a brilliant tool. And to think that this guy who's, you know, Bo Jackson's one of my favorite athletes, right? Because the thought that this guy could go play in the NFL and in a Major League Baseball game on the same weekend is like, it's beyond your wildest imagination now, right? Just think about it for a second. If someone tried to do that in 2024, you know, it would get the attention Shohei Ohtani gets. But yeah, so being able to be a two-sport athlete the way now clearly Ed Norton is, he's a great, brilliant, gifted artist, actor, performer, and clearly a gifted entrepreneur and also experienced VC. So kudos to Mr. Norton for knowing how to balance his.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because Robert was talking about, and again, having not met Edward Norton, I won't say this is his North Star, but my question was really about why would a guy who, for either of them, clearly probably have enough money to not have to do this anymore, why go start another company? Why put in millions of dollars to get it going? And for Robert, it was a chance to have fun again and do this in an area that he knew was a pain point. And for Edward, who had seen it when they went through it at CrowdRise, of having VC funds and PE funds and real reporting headaches, he said it was an absolute and massive waste of time for him that did not let him be who he was, which was not just an entertainer, but a really thoughtful business person. So his North Star was, I just want more time to be a thoughtful business person than I do a guy crunching slides together to put a deck, right? I feel like this episode's sponsored by Zach, but it's a really good example of, yes, there's a world need for that, but the guys who are in charge of it have a very, very clear vision of where they're going, and anything else on that plan is just background noise. I mean, they're on it, very on it, which is obviously very cool. I think let's define a little deeper. So, you know, for giving everybody some takeaway points here, I look at the North Star as kind of that's your playbook, right? I'm not going to liken it to an NFL playbook, but in a way, it's the opening page of the title of your playbook of where you're going, and everything else falls under that. Some call it purpose. Like, what are we really tapping into that so we know that's it? I'm not sure if you have a different word or a thought, but for me, yeah, it's like playbook and purpose are the things that I'd say, you know, what's your North Star in X and whatever this business, where does it fit for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably morbid, but it's sort of like, how do you want people to remember your career and how do people want to remember you as a person, and how do you want people to remember you professionally? And when I thought about what I wanted to be as a kid, there was always a layer of, I want to help people. And I've rationalized my career in sports that, I've helped a lot of people achieve their professional objectives and do a lot of really great things in business. And I've also felt great about the fact that I've worked in a sport that is as philanthropic as golf is in particular, and being also able to really work with athletes who in general are a very philanthropic group of people. And so I feel like a lot of the things that I've done have made a difference professionally, on a lot of people's lives, thanks to the many, probably hundreds of millions of dollars that have been raised through the various initiatives that I've touched through the years, and that are continuing to raise money. And so that's a great thing. And my wife and I have been able to support lots of other charities, but also sort of as an ambitious and competitive person, you want to have had an impact on your industry and been considered one of the best people at what you do. And I, to me, I want to be remembered as somebody who was always trying to advance the opportunity to be innovative and pioneer new thinking in their space. I think that's, to me, I was inspired to combine the science and sort of the mathematics of business and the sort of very clear and defined rules with the creativity and imagination of sort of disruptive new ways of thinking about everything, thanks to technology and the things that it unlocks. So I'm giving a very long explanation of sort of the considerations that go into how I would define my purpose, but it's did I make a difference in the world? Did I leave an impact both personally and professionally? To me, I've been able to find serendipitously a career path that has allowed me to see how I can continue to do that and develop new tools personally and professionally, and flex my superpowers as you've helped me to define that category of capabilities. And I think that the brightness of your North Star can evolve, based on, serendipity and, opportunity and a little bit of lightning striking. And you can all of a sudden be a supernova that can have, in my case, a huge impact if, some things, go in a certain direction. And if they never do, then, at least I've been working on things that have been able to have a positive impact on somebody.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because there's this collision. I think it's a good, not transition, but just a way to think of, okay, so if I've got this idea of my North Star, right, to sort of distill it down to application, I think I have a good idea. I know you as being this sort of deep thinker about creativity and partnerships, but blending that with your background that is close to medicine, biomechanics, right? And so to be able to think about things in that sphere versus how do you think about it as an engineer, right? Well, that probably won't have much impact for you if your brain doesn't work like that. So you've done a really good job staying in this. And then to superpower, for me, it was an aha to look at being a past professional soccer goalkeeper. One of my superpowers was the ability to organize high-performing teams. And that came out of watching game film and realizing that a lot of the study of game film as it went onto the field was, you can speaking to myself, you can very quickly put people in the right places and also figure out changes as they happen. And I didn't know that in the beginning when I was starting my entrepreneurship life. And that showed up in a way of do everything, be the janitor, be the bookkeeper, be the receptionist, be everything, because you just have to outwork the problem instead of, no, actually my superpower will be coordinating and finding those right people, the all-stars in the team. That helped me better serve, okay, my North Star, if it's going to be about experience and delivery of experience, who are the people that, number one, love to do that same thing and that are really good at it, right? And so I think to your point, staying locked in, and we can have bigger impact And it's kind of that transition in, okay, so how do I find my superpower, right? That's my question to you. And it's an evolution. You don't find it and go, aha, I put it in a box. But as you've kind of evolved and grown, what are some things that you've said, okay, that helped me find my superpower, and that also aligned with my North Star, and that's getting me like really vertically aligned on where I'm going?
I was pretty fortunate with advisors and mentors to be looking in the direction of innovation. I think I was looking back at how I got to a point in my life where I happily declare myself an entrepreneur now. I was sort of like a lot of people will look back on their journey as entrepreneurs, the baseball cards and the garage sales and the lemonade stands. And I was in AOL chat rooms in 1993, baseball card chat rooms where you were buying and selling trading cards years before eBay was an option as a marketplace. You were cutting deals in chat rooms with strangers on AOL. So, I think you sort of born with an entrepreneurial bug and inventor's spirit, or you're not. And maybe it's a little bit of like learning how to break the rules, or, trying to find ways to work around the rules, a little bit of a mischievous spirit perhaps. But, that combination of entrepreneurial spirit and a ability to embrace and sort of play chess with the impact of change, has enabled me to find my sweet spot of the kinds of things I like to think about, and then the kind of impact that those puzzles I like to think about the solutions can have on the projects I get to work on. And, I think what's cool about sort of accidentally falling into golf, I feel like I'm sort of a researcher ultimately at heart, who's been conducting research on how to leverage social media to drive business opportunity for people in this, really cool, disruptive media landscape. And I think golf is just this exceptional test kitchen, because the participants and audiences of the game of golf are biochemically addicted to the dopamine hit of seeing the ball go airborne, and they'll chase it forever. And it's okay that they chase it forever. It's totally safe and socially acceptable for them to chase it, and they do, to all corners of the world at great expense. So that's been job security for me and my family for a long time, which is back to the first North Star.
It's interesting that you say it that way. Sort of this job security it kind of defines the fact that there are so many companies, divisions, people, entrepreneurs that really don't have it, right? It's just, I want to be in this industry, and we'll pick golf. I want to be in it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to teach golf. I'm going to talk about golf. I'm going to play golf, whatever it is, professionally. But until you get really lasered in on what it is that you absolutely wake up every day to do, and you go, in my heart of hearts, that's what I want to do. We've heard people say, like, I never felt like I worked a day in my life. That's part of that purpose in North Star, just adding clarity for everybody listening. To me, one of the most important things, and maybe as a transition here, is it also helps you say no to the stuff that we call it the really shiny stuff. Jeremy and I talk about this a lot, but it's a filter. One of my absolute pieces of kryptonite is my inability to say no. And I, again, didn't learn that until late in life. That also came with saying yes to a lot that took me away from my kids, took me away from my wife, took me away from the success of my businesses to chase the next shiny, exciting thing, only to fracture all of those things along the way. Instead of, no, use it as a filter to say no. And I'm going to look at my notes because, again, I hate to keep bringing up Robert, but it's just so fresh. He broke it down to 5 things, and it was, there are no sorries, no yawning, do what you say you're going to do, period. Have as much fun as you can without hurting other people, and move at a speed that is uncomfortable. That was all part of his mantra of basically enjoy the madness. And he used it in his interviewing process. He'd use it when meeting partners. And I thought, it's going to be hard to find people to work for you. And yet I think of his 30 some employees that are now with him at Zec. I'm a little bit just guessing here, but I think it's north of 20 came from him in his first company, then to the second, and now to the third. So you think about that and you go, man, when you put that filter of the North Star, and here's kind of, I'm going to break it down for you point by point. It's not 15 things, it's 5 in his case. Damn, that's a lot of clarity, because you know what you're going to get when you go work with him. You probably know what you're going to get when you go on vacation with him with his family. You definitely know what you're going to get when you're with him at a cocktail party or out for drinks. And it's a guy who's looking for great experience and time. He's not crazy. He's not one of these, lunatics who's running off and trying to crash Ferraris by no stretch. He's just a guy who's like, let's go. And I really love that about him. And it tells him to say no to things that don't fall into that, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. That North Star it's a relative question. Again, back to my original statement of sort of what station in life you are, and where you can adjust that star, where on the spectrum of ambition can it be at any point in your station in life. But I think one of the things we both enjoy doing is helping people identify theirs and unlock the process of thinking about it in ways that they often haven't. I think that was when helping people, which we do now with Talent Brand Labs, identify a strategy for their content driven business enterprises. It's a process of, what is this life and journey that you're going to have with these platforms that you're creating or intend to create or are in the process of creating? What does it look like at each step along the way? And what are not necessarily the exact dominoes that need to fall, but what are the sort of strategic pillars of getting us to the next station and to the next station? And I think helping people to define the blueprint for how to get to each rung on their ladder, at least now that you can make some decisions on, is that juice worth the squeeze? Is my North Star what?
Yep.
Do we really want to go there? Maybe not. Maybe it's a little more hard work than I expected. Let's turn around and go ahead and do it the easy way.
All right. So give me, I'm going to ask for a freebie here, because I know you guys do this at Talent Brand Labs. It's a series of questions. I know this isn't a one-hit wonder question that you can get them into this, but you're interviewing a client. You get a sense they're really good at what they do, regardless of industry, lots of ideas, probably more risk of dying of gluttony than starvation, we like to say. What's maybe one of the succinct statements that you would use to kind of snap them into thinking of like, oh, okay, that you just kind of grabbed them by the cheeks and made them focus? Can you think of one of those things that you might, we call it our playbook, right? As we take clients through that. What's one of those that someone might say, hey, that'd be a good one for me, just to sit down and maybe do a little journaling on? You grab them by the cheeks and go, no, focus in here for a second.
I always like the sort of taking the perspective approach to that question. What would my children think of what I'm doing? What would my parents think of what I'm doing, or this thing I'm building? What would my kids, or my family think if, they understood some of the considerations that I went through to get here? Are you proud of your goals and objectives if your biography was being written, so to speak, right? And that, I think that's very much a personal, moral sort of compass kind of dynamic, but I think everybody's got to define that for themselves and how they want to navigate these types of things.
That's good. And I think if you're taking notes here, and the outline will be in the show notes. So, if you're driving, obviously don't. But if you're taking notes here, think about it this way in the spirit of your playbook for your North Star. You've got your overarching purpose that's going to be defined as seasons in life come and go, but I think it's going to be pretty tight. Your goals are how you get there, right? Think about that as a map. And then the objectives are, how are you breaking those goals down into smaller things to get there? So I think, to Jeremy's point, if I'm going to summarize, it would be, do the goals and objectives line up with your North Star? And at the end of the day, if you get there, Are you standing in front of all your family and friends and proud of where you got?
Yeah.
Because if at the end you're kind of doing a duck and cover, obviously you probably want to realign. And as easy as that is to say, I think all of us, including people, listening and viewing, would say, no, I know a few people that from the get-go, if they got there, it was about the jet and the yacht, the bigger house, the bigger bank account at all cost. Stepping on people, taking from others, add it to the list, right? And we've seen it obviously in the media as well. So the reality is this is our version. It's only our version that does come from experience. That, we're certainly not the wealthiest guys in the world, but what I can tell you is I love where I'm at for sure. Have I hit bumps and bruises? Have I pissed people off? Absolutely. Probably wouldn't be doing it right if I hadn't. But I can also tell you that I do have a check valve with guys like Jeremy, with mentors that I've talked to, in the spirit of you are the sum of the three people you hang around with. In the spirit of, are you proud to be there? An easy way to do that in this idea of let us help you give you some framework to work within is once you think you've got your purpose and North Star defined, you've got some goals and objectives maybe mapped out, run it by the three people that you really trust, not the three people who agree with you all the time, but three people who really help you be a better person, and ask them. They're going to know you better than anybody. Your spouse, most likely, a really good friend, a mentor. Look, we'd be happy to help. It's what we do. Test it against that. Hey, this is what I've come up with. And if somebody gives you we call it the lemon face, but like they bit into a lemon, or your dog, when you speak to them, you probably want to rewrite. But if someone says, man, I think you really nailed it, then you're on the right path. That would be my take.
I think it's important balance of self-confidence, self-awareness, and a pursuit of self-improvement. And you get in a nice cycle of believing in your abilities, always pursuing, the opportunities to be better, and, being very aware of how the two relate to one another.
Yeah. Isn't it ironic that you and I almost exclusively always hire athletes? Everything you just said is literally, I don't care whether you're on a sheet of ice, you're in a pool, you're out on a golf course, you're on a football field or soccer. I don't care what sport you're playing. I could say robotics. I could say esports in a team environment, whatever those things are. We know that to be true, that you're learning, you're checking in, you're getting better, you're reevaluating, you're learning, you're checking in, you're getting better. And sports is just a great place. And I think that's why our audience and our tribe, if you will, our community is who they are, because they know that to be true. It is who they are. And so in our world, don't be ashamed of it, right? Embrace it and use it that is one of the superpowers that we have as athletes, like use it. That's awesome.
Well, I think it's part of talking about North Star, of combining, your sort of personal objectives in life with sort of, when you can align that with what you get to do professionally, life can be a lot of fun, every day when you go to work. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to have fun developing your tools in your toolkit and becoming, more versatile, getting deeper in your expertise in one area, whatever it might be, but that it's such an incredibly gratifying aspect of life in general. And if you can align that with, the fulfillment of building a business, as an example, which is what we're here talking about, in a lot of respects, it's pretty awesome. It's another one of those shot euphoria type dopamine experiences when you can, really start enjoying the experience of building it in a way that is self-fulfilling.
It's a great way to say it, because I know we're huge fans, as we are on the show, of, I wouldn't say there isn't such a thing as a life hack. I'm just not a big fan of that statement, because I think shortcuts tend to lead to misses. But if you want to compress some learning, I think that's a really good one. And it's been a common thread with almost every guest in the show that you and I have talked to, or when you were on the show, is that I was just having fun, right? Are there going to be long, shitty days? Absolutely. Long, shitty weeks and months, for sure. But if you're going to check in against what your North Star is, if it doesn't light you up, if it doesn't seem like, man, that would be fun, building a business, running a business, those things are hard. Managing people, the old adage, if we didn't have customers, employees, I would love this. We say that in the sports facilities world. But the fact of the matter is, 23 years later, High Velocity, we have impacted millions of people at our facility. That is amazing. That to me is amazing. It was part of our legacy. That's a North Star. In the interim, yeah, there's some days that aren't fun. But if it's not fun, you gotta check it at the door. I mean, honestly, we've heard that time and time again. So I think that's a really good place to kind of grab the tail end of this, which is you got your purpose, you got your goals, you've got your objectives, you run it through your group of people. We don't mean to oversimplify it here, but come back to yourself and say, if I'm doing that, is it fun? And then I'd say the last little part of this is go find other people that are doing it, because whatever you're thinking about, my guess is you're not the first person, which is kind of cool. And so I have boys that are 23. They just designed a sock specific for golf. I asked them, and in way faster than I can do it, in 5 Google clicks, they figured other companies that had built socks, who were the founders, on LinkedIn, reached out to them. 2 of the 5 pinged them right back. And lo and behold, you had 2 people that they'd never met, that one of in the US, one in Scotland, around the world, that were willing to give them advice. And it was awesome. So, and their North Star was, we want to build the best sock to allow people to play the most golf. Cool. And they talked to 2 guys who were like, yeah, just stick within these boundaries. You're probably gonna have an awesome time doing it. So yeah, I think that's fun is my long way, your short way, my long way of saying, just make sure it's a check valve, right? Because if it's not fun, you're probably not on the right path.
Yeah. And hard can be fun. The Gary V talks so much about, the journey is the fun part, the process, enjoy it. And I think he's right. Because I think we've seen enough, insane success that if you ever do catch the pot at the end of the rainbow, it's still not enough. So you might as well get used to enjoying the journey, because that's really, that's what life ends up being, is that journey to the never truly attainable pot, with a handful of exceptions. Apologies to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos.
I think it's very, very aptly said. There's the embrace the suck, right? Which is the old Navy SEAL thing. But the truth is, like, if you don't enjoy hard, if you don't enjoy working hard, my guess is you did it as an athlete and a high performer. But if you don't enjoy working hard and getting after it, don't become an entrepreneur. Like, if that's one of your filters, which I hope it is, and you say, man, okay, I got my North Star, I got all these things aligned, ran up on my friends. If you're looking for a downhill coast, it's not here, right? It's not in the world of entrepreneurialism, because it's not for the faint of heart. The rewards are amazing. The journey is tough. And that's why not everybody does it. So make sure that you kind of put that as the very last filter, that if you don't enjoy hard work, Buffett has said it, I could list 50 guys that have said it, including Gary Vee. You have to know it's going to be hard and difficult. And that's why not everybody does it. So I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this up, which is run it through your filters. The very last one is, if you don't think it's hard, it's probably not big enough, by the way. And if you don't like the hard work side, it's probably not the right place to be. So that'd be my take.
I'll tell a lot of Hank Haney stories through the years. I've certainly told you my fair share of them in a book, acknowledgement section of a book that I did, a book deal I did for Hank. He acknowledged me, and in the acknowledgement, he thanked me, and he said, in closing, thanks, Jeremy, a tireless worker. And, Hank Haney is the most tireless worker I've ever seen in my life. The guy is relentless. First guy there, last guy to leave, kisses everyone's baby, takes every picture, taught me more about work ethic than anyone I know. And when he put that in the acknowledgement, that he recognized that I was a tireless worker, I'm like, okay, I guess I've illustrated that I know how to work hard, and I've just tried to keep working that hard and getting comfortable with that. And it, then, when you do sort of take a deep breath and and relax, it doesn't, you're still moving pretty fast, even when you slow down a little bit, when you get used to working really hard.
Yeah, my guess is Hank, one of his elements of the North Star is working hard and being surrounded by people who do. And so to say that he recognized it doesn't shock me that you fell into that category. And had you not been, you wouldn't have been part of his book. You probably would not have been part of his team. And if he did not love people who worked hard, you probably wouldn't have been part of the team either. So I think that's probably an indirect, really good example of someone who had a North Star, knew how to surround himself with people that would do it. My challenge, I guess, for our community here is you've listened to the show. Hopefully you've taken away a couple of really cool things. Write it down and get started. I cannot emphasize that enough. Write it down and get started. It's going to suck in the beginning. It won't look pretty. You may think you've already got it nailed. Write it down again. Statistics say 70% plus success rate when you write it down versus having it between your ears. So write it down, go through it, follow a simple process. We'll have it down in the show notes. But Jeremy, thank you for joining me as co-host. This has been cool. Just fireside chat. I feel like we should have like a couple of glasses of wine or something, but
next time,
or maybe some scotch for you and I. But no, thanks, man. I appreciate you taking the time to join
Let's
in.
get some sponsors for this show. I can't do this. I can't do this for free forever, Bryan.
Well, we got let's see, Zach, Galway Bay, the Golf Sock. We got all the guys we mentioned today, so we're going to have to lean on them. But
you're talented
folks,
now, Bryan.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks for joining us. If you like the show, give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe. That's how we kind of know what's kind of going on, and leave us show notes. That's exactly where this topic came from. We had a bunch of people asking about how do I even find this thing you call the North Star. Hopefully we've given you some tidbits here that'll kind of drop into what you can get started. And we'll have Jeremy's link in the bio along with mine. If you have any questions, either or both of us, happy to help you out. So thanks for joining us on What's Next.